the last category before we start getting disappointed is the big surprise of 2023. So it wasn't our favorite, but this was the game that kind of came out of nowhere and very much exceeded our expectations. So I will let, I guess technically, Seth, I haven't actually started with you on any of these categories. So I know you just kind of went through a big thing, but going right back to you. What was your big surprise this year?
I'm gonna put Hi-Fi Rush here again.
Fair enough.
Because that
Fair enough.
was genuinely a big surprise, and instead I kind of want to focus on its release and everything about that instead of the game itself. We already talked about how great the game is.
Yes.
It's my game of the year. That's all you need to know. It's me and Drew. Like, if we had like our own little fresh statue, we would try to get it to Tango Gameworks, and they'd be like, "What the fuck are you doing? Get out of here!" But anyways,
Sir, please, we're almost at 60 subscribers. More
but
important.
we have clout. We mean something. But anyways, I think what makes Hi-Fi Rush's like release so unique is that it came in January, typically kind of considered a dead time of the year for gaming. And like Drew said, it was just sort of like there was a showcase with Xbox. They had the surprise announcement. They dropped it in one day. And I love the fact that besides the announcement, which definitely gives it a boost, you can't deny that like having a showcase during a dead period of time for gaming, and then basically be like, hey, this new hotness is already out in the market, go get it, definitely contributes to some of those sales. But beyond that, there was no real big marketing push for Hi-Fi Rush. It was word of mouth. It was people just playing this game and being like, oh, this is actually really good. This is not some shit like this wasn't a day one release, but it's not like a Doritos Crash Course game or whatever, where
that
it's
game
just like,
slaps.
yeah, we just
that game's fire. I love Doritos Crash Course.
but like,
Yeah,
it's not like a game that's just like, oh, it's out today, and it's like, yeah, it's like a little game, whatever. It's not like the fucking Space Jam tie-in game they did like a couple years back or anything.
Yeah.
It's like it was a full-fledged experience, and it was just so, like I said, the game was so good in itself that it was able to get other people talking about it through word of mouth, and I love that, especially since I feel like we're reaching an egregious point where so much money is always being spent on marketing these games. Get flying out influencers to fucking LA to play your big new shiny title, to play the new Call of Duty, and plastering the fucking posters everywhere. And like, oh god, it feels so nice and genuine to see just a game get like the attention it deserves, and honestly it deserves more through just word of mouth of just like, it's that fucking good. I feel like you could say the same thing kind of with Baldur's Gate 3 as well. Like, there wasn't that much of a big marketing push. You didn't see fucking like TV commercials for Baldur's Gate 3 during Monday Night Football.
You know what the biggest selling point or the reason I first heard about Baldur's Gate, and the reason I feel like a lot of people first heard about Baldur's Gate, because there was that one article that said that you could fuck the bear. And that's what I mean, drew so
they
many.
knew what they were doing when they were revealing the romances. They're like, hey, you can have so many options. And then they showed that scene, and people lost their shit.
Yeah.
They literally showed it like in a convention, like at a con or something, in a hall, like on panel, and like the entire crowd lost their shit.
And that's cool. Like, and that's cool that like they're able to get like the shock value of that to like help it. But like even more than that, I think what helps Baldur's Gate 3 is the thing I kind of want to fight back with Baldur. I'm sorry, I meant to talk about Hi-Fi Rush. I'm going to talk a little bit about Baldur's Gate 3 now. Is I don't want people to act like, oh, this game just kind of came out of nowhere and it was awesome. I cannot stress enough, like, there was a full-on community for this game that existed years before 2023. Like, like Larian curated this community. They made this happen. And I feel like I said, That's why Baldur's Gate 3 wins Game of the Year, is because the work was put in a long time ago,
Yeah.
and this is the culmination of that work. It didn't just come out of nowhere. Like a lot of people were like, "Oh, Baldur's Gate 3, I've never seen it before. It looks like a mobile game, like whatever." But anyways, going back to Hi-Fi Rush, and I mean, I guess you could pair these two. Is like I just like the fact that like not a lot of like the typical marketing stuff was put behind Hi-Fi Rush, and it just managed to like get that attention it deserves without that. Another game that came out around the same time as Hi-Fi Rush was Forspoken, which is the best example of the exact opposite of that. That game was marketed to death. It was like the typical thing where it's just like, we got all these people playing this game and they're gonna put their YouTube reactions and Twitch stuff and blah 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 blah, like all that shit up, and then they have like, yeah, and then like all the damn trailers and stuff like that. Is like, I just did that with my mind, like all that fucking garbage, frankly.
Overlay the image of Chai like drop kicking the Forspoken protagonist.
Oh, dude, don't worry,
Yeah.
Robert.
Definitely.
That image is probably already up if I'm if I'm paying attention to the other, because it was up when we first talked about Hi-Fi Rush, about how Hi-Fi Rush came and just freaking elbow dropped Forspoken out of existence, and that will never not be funny to me.
And to me, it's like fascinating because it's like this, like, you know, Hi-Fi Rush kind of comes out of nowhere and beats up what usually is a surefire thing, which is a PlayStation exclusive, like Sony X Square Enix joint. You know,
it was the Final Fantasy 15 team.
Yeah. So, and
Worse in that aspect.
yeah, and like in a way, I don't want to like drag Forspoken too much, but like that, it's, I mean, the numbers speak for themselves, where like that was a game that like that largely failed because of word of mouth, and I think also marketing doesn't guarantee the success of your game. Like I think we're in an era where like a lot of like your audience, which is going to be composed of largely millennials, like typical marketing stuff where you put trailers in front of us all the time isn't going to work. Like, you got to do something different. And I feel like what Hi-Fi Rush did, not every game needs to be surprise drop, mind you, but the fact that like it just didn't insist upon itself so much is also what makes it more appealing.
I think the thing of just like, and kind of the theme of this year, and especially with Hi-Fi Rush, is just like, you know, like advertising's fine and trailers are fine, but like 2023 is definitely the year that kind of still tells us like, if you want your game to do well, make it a good game. And I know it sounds simple, but like that's what kind of this year showed us. Like, Spider-Man should have won any other year and but it didn't, because Baldur's Gate 3 is amazing. Forspoken should have been a big success, but it didn't, because Hi-Fi Rush came out, and Hi-Fi Rush is a good game. I just like, all the marketing and all the AAA things like will come out, but at the end of the day, what will actually gain you success is the real product, which I think is a very good thing, and like it's actually kind of a good thing that's kind of how games work and how this system works now. It's just like, word of mouth is the most important thing, and word of mouth is directly influenced by, is this game good?
I agree.
Right. Well, that is Seth's biggest surprise. I agree. Hi-Fi Rush is phenomenal, and also was quite the surprise for all of us. But we have got to move on. We're gonna move on to Randy, actually. Randy.
All right.
What was the big surprise of this year?
The big surprise for me, this game didn't come out in 2023, but it was the first time, like, I saw a little bits of it, and I was like, okay, yeah, looks all right. But I finally got around to playing it, is that cute little fox Zelda game called Tunic.
Yo.
Oh!
Yeah, so I remember we got it on sale, and I would come home from work and Will would be like, "Time for some tunic," and I'd be like, "Oh yeah." And it's a fun little, um, like little bit of combat, but like
It's an adventure
some
game.
puzzles and yeah, it's an adventure game. It's Fox Zelda. It's like,
Yeah.
and so I still technically haven't finished it because Baldur's Gate came out and I have almost 400 hours in the game. So, whoops. But I do have every intention to go back and play it. And if people haven't played it and they just like kind of dismissed it as just like, it looks, just kind of simple or whatever. It's really fun, and like one of the kind of fun like puzzle solving aspects of it is the is actually like the manual itself and like
Yes.
how you
Oh
learn
my
to
God.
do stuff. It's kind of more like picturesque, and like you don't just have the manual immediately and like know how to do everything, and like it's in this like different language that I'm sure people have made a codex for, and if you wanted to translate it, you could. um, it's not necessary that you use a codex to, but I don't know. It's fun. It's cute, and like I said, I have every intention of finishing it once Baldur Gates, gives my life back to some other games.
All right.
We'll see how that goes.
Yeah, we'll see how that goes.
Yeah.
I'm sure I'll be like, all right, and done. And then they'll be like, hey, crossplay's working. And I'll be like, all right, here we go again. Shit. Here we go again.
I wonder. I did play a bit of Tunic because Resident Zelda fanboy here, but I wasn't exactly like clicking with it for a few reasons. I honestly wonder if I was playing it on Steam Deck, if I would enjoy it more. Which it sounds
Well, that could be
really
fun.
weird to say that, but it's the kind of game I feel like I would click with, like laying in bed or on the couch rather than like sitting up at like a desk to play.
Yeah, we were mostly playing it on the PC that was connected to our TV, so we were like laying on the couch and playing it. So yeah, I definitely see how, like, yeah, it could be a really fun game to definitely, play on like a Steam Deck or something. A little bit before bed or something.
Honestly, I could definitely see that. I would vibe with that. Man, Randy, I'm so glad that you've gotten the chance to experience a little bit of it, and I hope to goodness gracious that you do get to play more of it. Because the not Steam Deck. I'm sorry. Oh my God.
Still on that Steam Deck.
Tunic.
Is that good?
Yeah. So last year, Tunic came out, and I also played that, and it was definitely on the short list of like what could have been one of my game of the years, if it wasn't for Elden Ring. But like, Tunic
It's on my wish list. I got to get to that game too.
Oh man, there's a lot of game. But Tunic is just, oh my God, like it's so fun because I think even though I'm not the biggest Zelda fanboy, I vibe with it so hard just because how it approached the world, the manual and how much it brings attention to itself as a video game, and you deciphering it is just such a fun like kind of puzzle experience where you're paying attention to the world. It's like, okay, how can we put this together? What does this mean? I remember just like there's one part where I'm like, it explains what these different rings and perks do, but you just kind of have to like guess based on like pictures and like images, like, okay, I guess this is what that ring does. I remember one ring that like I was like, it has like a sword up sign, but also like a heart down. Like, does it reduce my max health but raise my attack? And I wore it because it was the only ring I had. It's like, I don't know what it's doing. During one of the boss fights, it was beating my ass until I got to low health. And then all of a sudden, I started chunking the boss. And it was like, holy fuck, that's what the ring does. It gives me more damage when I'm at low health. That's something that any other game, it would have just basically been like, you found the item, congrats, this is what it does. But the fact that like the fact that like Tunic makes it such a process makes it so much more fun and interesting to you. Not to mention, and I don't want to spoil it, but like the little meta narrative that's kind of going on with Tunic, if you really want to dig into it, is so delightful. Uh, oh my god, it's just so good.
I was saying,
Um,
I gotta get back to it.
Baldur's Gate isn't going
What's the
anywhere,
point?
Andy. You can take a break for a minute.
But
It's
you
not
can't
going
take a
anywhere.
break, Randy.
Take
I
it-
can't.
Baldur's Gate forever.
Take it.
Just
Take
go
a
up to
minute.
Will and just be like, Tunic?
he would love that. He's so sick of my bullshit of playing Baldur's Gate all the time.
Just take a break from it, so that way when you come back and crossplay is available, it's fresh again. It's okay.
Oh, okay. Well, let me finish my tactician mode.
Okay.
I'll do my tactician run, and then I think after that I'll take a
feel like
sizable break.
I feel like I'm talking to a drug addict right now. I'm just like,
I'll take a sizable break after my
I
tactician
can quit
run.
Baldur's Gate whenever I want. All right, I don't have a
Well,
problem.
no, I'll admit I can't. I have to finish this run.
Let me snort this last thing of crack first.
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly what this is.
Oh lordy.
Okay.
Well,
Well,
but yeah,
Tunic.
like going back, yeah, like Tunic is amazing. Randy, you really, I'm so glad that you also played it. Robert, I do hope you give it another chance because I feel like if you do, the magic of that game is just gonna wow you. It's just so fun. It's so cool.
But that
Go play
unfortunately,
Tunic.
that was unfortunately not the game that wowed Robert this year. The game that wowed Robert was this big surprise. Which Robert, what was that game again? What was that big surprise you had this year?
I believe it was called Lies of P.
Damn it, we had the same one.
Oh,
Oh well, go
we
ahead.
said the same one for...
You're right. You're right.
So-
All right, but go ahead, Liza P.
So with Lies of P, typically with a lot of these like Souls-like games, they kind of end up being either direct ripoffs or just not nearly as polished as they need to be. These kind of things. Lies of P is not that. Lies of P is a very surprisingly polished game. It has a surprisingly good story, good boss fights. Everything about it is just really good, and I didn't expect it to be good ever since I like heard about it. Because kind of what I knew going into it was like, yeah, this is like a mix of like Bloodborne and Sekiro with like its world design, like its gameplay systems, but it's so much more than that.
Yeah.
Like, yes, it's obvious what its inspiration was, but it's its own thing. Like, yeah, you get the combat of Sekiro where it's like you have like the time blocks and all that, but you also have like an interesting weapon degradation system you gotta manage. Like, you have to fix your weapon mid-combat if you're not careful. You could break weapons outright, and enemies can break your weapons too if you let it get too low. You also can like manage your weapons in interesting ways where you could take apart the blades and the handles and attach them to other weapons. So you can just forge entirely unique combinations to whatever gameplay style suits you, which I think is an ingenious mechanic for these, because typically in like Souls games, like, yeah, you have all these weapons, but you'll probably end up using like maybe like, I don't know, 5 or 10 of them out of like a roster of like 50 or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
There's just so much like creativity you can use for the weapon system that I think it adds a lot of replay value to that in of itself. That's not even talking about the P organ.
P organ. Yeah.
The P organ has a lot of unique stuff to it too.
God, I
Where
wish that
you-
had a better name though.
Yes.
God,
I
wish
love
that-
P organ. Fuck you.
Apparently, also
Go ahead.
apparently it makes sense in like it like makes sense in like Korean, which is what this game's originally from. God, so it's funny. Anyway, sorry, Robert. Continue.
Yeah. But it's like you can add all these different like effects and stuff, and these carry into New Game Plus. So like Seth was telling me how like you can pretty much break New Game Plus of all these abilities that you get, and some of them are apparently only exclusive to New Game Plus. So there's a lot more reason to replay it other than just trying a different build. You could just see how much you can make the game like kind of bend to your will. And I'm really excited to kind of dig more into that later on.
Yeah, this has
Yeah, like
been
the
oh,
P organ ability,
okay.
like sorry, I'm just gonna jump in with this since yeah, like what I love about it is like in its new game plus is not only do you doing the typical Souls thing where it's just like, yeah, enemies are more beefy, they do more damage, yada yada yada, and you are also finding rings that are like +1, +2. They do the same stuff but better. You still get that, but I love that like with the P organ system, you get these unique perks that kind of start breaking the game. Like some of it is like the fury attacks, which typically in the past, like the only way you could deal with fury attacks is you have to like perfect guard it. You cannot guard against it normally, and you cannot dodge out of the way with it. Yet with these P organ things, it's like, oh yeah, you can just guard it normally as well. That's just one of like kind of the crazy ass perks that you can get, where it feels like the game is like rewarding. Like here, you've gone through the first playthrough. Now here's some perks to like really break it and just go nuts with the game. It makes New Game Plus so much more fun, and I wish that like I honestly wish that FromSoft would take a couple of notes from that, as well as a couple of other elements from Lies of P.
Yeah. So Lies of P it was also my most surprising. So I'll mix mine in with Robert's, because I've started a lot of FromSoft games, and I've always said I don't stop it because it's like too difficult or whatever. I stop it because I never got super interested. And I mainly started like with like the Souls series and also Sekiro, and it was all like it never grabbed me. And I thought for a while these games just weren't for me until I played Lies of P, and the fact that, and I don't know if it was the fact that it has a bit more of a linear story. It had so many more quality of life things, like the fact that if you're out of your charges or flask, if you're a traditional Souls player, you can still build one back by fighting. Um, the weapon customization. I don't know what it was about this game, but everything just works so well together, and I just fell in love with it. So much so that like this game got me. Like I'm playing Bloodborne right now. It got me to like be like, no, this game's fun, and I see the appeal of Souls games. I'm gonna actually go back and start playing more of these. It's fun, and I like Lies of P is definitely, at least for me, like I think it's my number 2 game, right behind Hi-Fi Rush, which is so weird to me that a Souls like game is like one of my top like games, and I traditionally like never got super big into them. I was always like, I probably won't really finish it. But I tried this one because I was like, it looks cool, and the weapons customization looks so much fun, and we played it so much that me and Seth did an entire like tier list video about it. And the only reason Robert wasn't on that is because at the time of recording he hadn't finished it.
Yeah, I just kind of got behind on it. I finished it like not long after you guys recorded.
Yeah, which Robert, I think now I'm also curious. Like, I almost want you to watch that video and be like, what are your thoughts on our boss tier list? But yeah, that game's so much fun. Its art design is great. I love how it incorporates elements of the original story into this. Its gameplay is tight. And there's so much like customization, not only with weapons but also like, you know, choosing your different Legion armor. You going more strength. I remember when I played through it on the second time, because originally I played all motivity or strength build, and then I'm like, actually on the second time I'm gonna do advanced, which is the more technical stuff, and get all like use all the different status effects and use my Legion arm more and do stuff, and it's almost like a different game playing it that way. Yeah, the game is so well polished, and I heard this thing of it's like it is almost unfair to call this game a Souls-like or a FromSoft light game because it has as much polish and as much care as a regular mainline FromSoft title. And it is wild to me every time I say this and I look at this game, and I'm always reminded that right before this company was making mobile games, and they took this challenge and just stuck up to the plate and like hit a home run immediately. And it's beautiful. I cannot wait because they've already announced that like DLC is coming, and I don't know if I don't know if they essentially announced like a sequel, but they have said like more content for this game is coming. Like they're not done with this, because this did phenomenal. And the fact that I technically did have to pay for it, it came out on Game Pass like day one access, was just the perfect little cherry on top. And this is just this perfect storm for this game to get me into this genre. So that's kind of why it was my surprise this year. I was not expecting 2023 to be the year I get into Souls games, but Lies of P definitely did that for me.
Like I definitely played it because it was on Game Pass. I fully intend to actually buy the game at some point. I probably
Oh yeah.
end up getting like a physical copy on like Xbox so I can keep my saves and all that. But still, it's like I definitely want to own this game like for real.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean it's such a achievement that like it has this fantastic like art design that we've all been kind of talking about, where it's just like that mix of like the almost like gothic Bloodborne type setting, and then you get like this like almost like I don't know how to describe it, European Italian architecture. I'm not fucking smart. It looks cool. And it's like all combining together in this night light into this nice like dark fairy tale take that shouldn't work, but it really does. And not only is the action just really well polished, like the gameplay itself, but it's also like there's some genuinely really good ideas here that I'm like, man, I hope FromSoft steals these ideas. Like, I hope to God that they do. I'm trying to think of a really good one right now. Like the P, like not P cell, the pulse cell.
Yeah.
Where that's your essentially your flask in the game. But what's so cool that they do here is if you run out of pulse cells, you can actually charge the last one by hitting enemies, by doing damage to them, and it creates this fun risk reward of like should I really keep pressing the attack here and hope that like I can recharge another pulse cell before I eventually bite it, or if you're in like a boss fight, it leads to less things where you're just wiped. It's like, ah, man, I already used up all my healing. Time to wipe. It's like, nah, man, I still get this one last thing I can charge up. I'm still in this fight. It creates such a fun like combat dynamic, and I'm not gonna lie, that pulse cell led to way more deaths in this game. Just for me personally, just because of how cocky I got of like, yeah, I can charge this up in time. Nope, definitely ate shit on the next mini boss. But it's such a good like gameplay like mechanic. And also as Robert mentioned, the weapon like kind of like the weapon head and handle swapping mechanic addresses a huge issue that's always kind of been in Souls games about like getting a new weapon. But it's like, but I've already invested so many points into this thing. Like, do I really want to give that up? It's just like you don't have to. Liza P is like not only a great Souls-like, it really kind of helps set like certain standards that I'm kind of hoping the fathers of the Souls-like genre start to take a couple of notes from.
Yeah. No, Liza P it's phenomenal. And if you want to hear more of our thoughts, go check out the tier list video that me and Seth made. And then you could really understand more of our thoughts of just like how well designed this game, and especially one of the most enticing parts about the game is these bosses. So definitely check out that video. All right.
It's the bread and butter in Souls games.
Yep. Well, we've been pretty happy for this first hour and a half, if I haven't already sliced this video in half already. But now, it's time to talk about some disappointment. 2023 was not all sunshine and rainbows. And I will go first. And with this one, I do want to clarify again. It's not necessarily that this game is bad. It's just I was disappointed by it because I had, really big expectations for it. And I will continue playing this game more than likely because I guarantee more updates will come out. And even when we have played, it's been fun. But my biggest disappointment for 2023 was actually Payday 3. And again, I think Payday 3 is a pretty good game, but when you compare it to Payday 2 and how much, and again, it's an unfair comparison because Payday 2 has so much content. It seemed a
decade of content.
yeah, it had a decade of content, so it was a bit kind of lackluster when it came out, but people expected that. What was really disappointing though about Payday 3 is when it initially came out, online was just not working, and it was just so disheartening because I immediately remember I was like, guys, let's play Payday 3 when it comes in, and a lot of you guys were like, no, we have to wait. Yeah, we have to wait for it to get patched. And Randy still hasn't even played, even though it has been patched.
Yeah.
And
I'm still waiting.
You're not waiting anymore. You started playing Baldur's Gate 3. You forgot about it.
Okay, fair.
Yeah, I'm sorry, Randy. I don't think it's gonna happen.
For the first time like last weekend.
Yeah, exactly. But like, it's the thing where it's just like, and it's the exact opposite of all the games that we've talked about that have doing so well this year. It came out, and it just didn't work, and it's just so frustrating every time because I was excited because I was like, a game that the four of us can play and get into and do all these heists together, but because it had such a just kind of flat release, everyone just was like, oh, whatever. And there were so many other games. This was also around the time Lies of P was coming out. For me, Mortal Kombat was coming out. A bunch of other stuff was coming out around this time. There's more I just can't remember, but like we were talking about, I was like, there's so much stuff to do. But hey, when Payday 3 comes out, we'll all be doing that. That'll be fun. No, we won't, because it didn't work when it came out. And that's so just like, God, like, come on, man. And it'd be one thing if it was like, I mean, this would still be bad, but it would be better if it would be a thing where it's like, oh, but there's a single player aspect to it that like, that works fine. You can do that, but we just have to wait on like the multiplayer, like how like originally Grand Theft Auto 5 was. No, that's not what Payday 3 is though. Payday 3 markets itself around playing it with your friends and being there. If there is a single player content, few people have tried, and that's not really why you play Payday. So it's just such like a disappointment that like the fact that it came out in the state that it did just killed this game's momentum so far. Like, and again, it sucks because I think it is a good game. We've done some things where it was me, Seth, and some of our other friends went on and we did some heist. I messed up some stealth stuff because I accidentally shot a guy. My fault. But we replay it and did it right the next time, and that's fun. And it was fun, like kind of coordinate. It was also fun when like silly stuff happened. But it sucks so much that all the momentum for this game was just stopped right in its tracks the second it came out because of that thing. And it's just so disheartening every time a new game comes out, especially if it's about online, like multiplayer, that, wait, it's not really out now. We got to patch it a little bit. And it won't really be fun now because there'll be another update later, so you have to keep playing it later and stuff like that. And I guarantee you Payday 3 will be super fun 5 patches from now because they'll add different content and more guns and different abilities, and it'll be all fun and great. But right now, in the state that it came out, it was very disappointing. And it sucks because it's not a bad game.
Yeah. I definitely can understand like the frustrations you're coming from there with you, Drew. I will say that it's funny that you mentioned like about like more content, and I believe they just like dropped like some of its first DLC heist. Yeah. I think with Payday 3, yeah, like whenever it initially released, it just came down to one of those things where it's like, yeah, like it sucked that like really just the servers weren't working, so you just really couldn't play with like your friends at the time. And you could play a single player, and I do know like there are like people out there who do enjoy like doing kind of like the solo like runs, and it's obviously stealth, like because doing it loud like solo is very difficult. But like there's people who do solo stealth. Like I mean, our friend that we played with, Jake, did a lot of solo stealth runs of like a lot of the heists. So that is a legitimate play style.
No, that's fine.
But like I do agree that like in general and I guess I'll pair my disappointments. This isn't my most disappointing game, but in general, like I feel like this year we've had a lot of games that have come out and really good games that have largely been marred with like really bad technical issues when they came out. Like you talked about like Payday 3, a big crux of that game is like being able to play with your friends. That's just not available at the start, which sucks. Um, we talked about this before in our podcast earlier this year, but like also Jedi Survivor kind of came out in a pretty rough state where there was just like performance issues and it was like very frustrating. It did take like a good 4 or so months before they kind of got it patched so it would actually ran at a consistent 60 on Kobo, um, on like the Series X and like the PlayStation 5. So it did take almost half a year before it was in a functional state. Uh, Not functional state, sorry. It was functional from the start. I mean in frame rate. And like also like other examples like Redfall and all that jazz. Like it's I think I think we as like a lot of like players are just it's not even fun when your most disappointing game is it's disappointing because of technical issues, because if it was like actually something wrong with the game itself, like the way it plays out, there's way more fun ways you could talk about like, oh man, they really screwed the pooch on this one. But like technical issues, it's like this, and I mean we have to talk about it because if no one does, then who will? But it feels like I'm a broken drum at this point. I'm just tired of like games of like releasing in like these really like rough states. One of the things I will applaud like a Bethesda for is for Starfield. While Starfield was not like the big groundbreaking be all end all RPG. It was Baldur's Gate 3, not Starfield that was that. I will appreciate this much though. Bethesda did a great job at polishing up that game. I was if you guys remember earlier this year with the podcast, I was very scared of like, hey, Starfield is going to be 30 frames per is going to be 30 FPS capped on the Series X. I was like, okay, I'm a little worried because they said the same thing for Redfall, and Redfall definitely didn't run at 30. But they did. They got it to come out. Starfield came out and it ran at 30, and I had it. You know, it's so weird to say. It was the most polished Bethesda experience. Where I didn't have that many bugs in my experience. I had about like 110 hours into that game, and although I did have the typical like bodies glitching out and stuff and like that, there was nothing like for like crazy performance issues or quest breaking or just basically being a Fallout 76. It worked. So like good on them for that. And it sucks. I appreciate it when there's the polish is there. You know what? I don't want to be like a Debbie Downer and say like it sucks that we have to basically applaud people for polishing it. But you know what? People have to put the work in to make it happen. So I do appreciate it when they do that. And yeah, like maybe, and I understand with like Payday 3, it's a little different. It's more like server issues with multiplayer. Maybe they needed the servers, they need to stress test it a bit more. But yeah, that was just especially with like a multiplayer game, you have to make a good impression at the start. Otherwise, you start to leave otherwise your base starts to leave you. Thankfully, I think Payday 3 is not in danger of that at all. They kind of already have a built-in base with Payday 2, and it seems like that they've been able to like mostly resolve those server issues. Considering like I've been playing with like Jake and my brother on that game, and we've honestly haven't had any issues with it.
Yeah. No, and again, I think Payday 3 is a good game. I want to play more of it. I think it was just like when I was looking at the games in the past, I was like, what games where I was super excited for? And while I thought about Jedi Survivor, but I was like, honestly, Jedi Survivor didn't affect me as much. Like there were some frame drops, but that didn't affect me as much. I don't think I was bummed out about that versus Payday, where it was a feeling of just like, oh yeah, I like it. It was a feeling with Payday where I should have said like I should have accepted this, and I looked back and was like, no, I shouldn't have. I shouldn't expect it to not work for the first like couple of weeks, almost month that it's out. Again, Payday is already good, and we'll keep playing it in the future, but it's just one of those things where like I hate that this is kind of a consistent story, especially when like there are other games this year that came out at a complete full and like amazing quality and did all this like amazing stuff right out the gate. So it shows that like it can do it. Again, it's harder, but it's frustrating that like you said, that we are still dealing with this, that we're still talking about this. And I hope that like maybe hopefully it's a lesson for the future that this trend can like stop happening, I guess.
Yeah, and I think we do live in an age where we are always going to have broken games. There's no doubt about it. But it does feel like, especially in the AAA space, it has become the norm rather than the not the norm.
Yeah. Exactly.
I don't want to say exception because I don't want to put any sort of idea that like I think we should give people exceptions on this. I think like sadly this industry has like kind of gone down a route of like push it out and patch it later mentality, and it's just become way too prevalent. So I agree. I think we need not, and because I don't want to just hyper focus on Payday 3. I think the industry as a whole needs to really look into itself and be like, hey, polish this motherfucker. Delay if you have to.
Yeah, I'd rather delay than come out not working. I think that's more acceptable. I don't know.
What is it? A delayed game will be good eventually.
God.
A shit game is shit forever.
Yeah.
Just as Miyamoto said.
Yep.
Yeah, something
Verbatim.
Miyamoto.
Something. Yeah.
Yeah.
A shit game's fucking ass.
Something.
Lost in translation. Something.
Whatever.
Anyway.
Yeah, man.
Yeah.
That's enough about that and about the launch of that. So, Robert, haven't talked to you in a minute. Missed hearing your voice. What were you disappointed about? What was really grinding your gears this year?
What was grinding my gears this year? Well, honestly, the AAA game industry. That's disappointed me more than any game I've played this year combined. And let me take this chance to go on a tirade because honestly, it's been incredibly demotivating personally.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm gonna get real here for a minute. And so honestly, it feels contradictory to say that because of how many good quality games were released this year and just how many amazing like indie and major titles have came out. But the elephant in the room that is both talked about a lot yet also not talked about enough in the right spaces is the state as a whole. So like this year we've seen almost 10,000 AAA game jobs get cut due to corporate layoffs or studio closings, like fucking Embracer Group doing that for all these different reasons. So it feels like despite many people's hard work, their reward is like getting the boot and a severance package, which it kills a lot of excitement for me for a lot of these big titles. Like, again, no game that I have played or that got released this year can really compare to that disappointment. Just seeing like higher ups at like Microsoft, Sony, or Epic that feel like the first course of action should be just to fire people who make the money in these amazing games instead of them taking smaller profits or cut some of the higher up salaries. It's like I feel so strongly about this because the entire reason I wanted to pursue a higher education, go to college, is to get a degree and work at some of these big studios like 343 or Insomniac or whatever. But it's incredibly disheartening for me to graduate and get that game design degree and then just see how terrible people are treated. And I personally got to see some of this firsthand because I did contract work with a small studio, which I'm not going to name for privacy reasons, but that one's also in the hot seat for layoffs. I'm not even sure the project I worked on is going to see the light of day. I have no idea.
Hmm.
So I apologize for the rant, but I really can't state enough how disappointed I am that this is how things are right now. It's like I really
Yeah.
hope that this year has been a big eye opener for many people, especially after like the ruckus people had after like the Game Awards didn't talk about this in any way and all that backlash. And I really hope things start to go like push towards the better again because I don't believe it's all hopeless, but it just sucks to see all this like bad stuff. It's like every other day, every other week, you're seeing this studio's having these major layoffs. It just sucks.
Yeah, and it's unfortunate that like it's not. If it was one studio doing it, then we could all point the finger at them and be like, "Oh my God, Microsoft's the devil," or "Oh my God, Sony's the devil." But like the fact that this is a trend and the fact that this is happening at so many different like huge and big corporations is like, I mean, you hit nail on the head. It's disheartening and it's like it's terrible to see, and it's just like these are things that like people put so much passion and energy and love and care not only into like playing it but especially making it. Like these are their form of artwork and like these are like part of their soul, and to like watch them basically get kicked out of that industry for no good reason other than higher ups don't want to take a pay cut is like truly sad.
See, I saw something that kind of pissed me off the other day, which was like there was like a post saying like, "Oh, Epic wants like fucking CEO from Epic, Tim Sweeney." He's like, "Oh, we want like to put Fortnite on Steam Deck, but we don't have enough programmers to do this or whatnot." But bitch, you laid off a bunch of your fucking
Yeah, it's like
programmers.
that's your
What do you
fault is
fucking
why you
mean?
don't have programmers.
You dense motherfucker.
Yeah, it's just like it's it's not just the gaming industry, it's every industry. Like, it's the news industry. I probably shouldn't rant about my bosses. But it's everything. Just like it's big heads in fancy suits that have no idea what what their company they're running is really about, and don't even care that these are people. So it's just
Yeah.
yeah.
That's what I was about to say is like sadly, Robert, I think like the real issue is like it's not really just this isn't an exclusive game industry thing. This is a everything wide thing.
Mhm.
Every like fucking every industry is fucking doing this, and they've been doing this, and it fucking sucks. I think I really don't know what quite like the solution is. I think what we have to know is we have to start I think at the end of the day, we need to start like letting people know that you have no obligation to any corporation or any company. You have an obligation to yourself, um, first and foremost. I get it. There's like things like the contracts and legal obligations. And yes, absolutely. We do. Whenever you sign that, you do have to fulfill that. But at the end of the day, you have to understand that like companies, people care about you. Companies aren't people, and
Correct.
they will like cut you off as soon as they see that like you are no longer profitable to them. Uh, and like I said, this is not an exclusively game industry thing. Like I said, me and Drew, we both work in news. I've seen this firsthand myself everywhere, whether we've run stories on it or whether we've seen it within our own industry of like this shit happening. I remember like a couple years back when CNN was launching its whole like oh, we have the what was it called, like CNN Plus, like streaming service, and it didn't even make to air. It fucking crashed and burned before it came out. What do you think happened to like all those people who were whose sole job was to work on that streaming service, and they canned it before it even made air? Like, what happened to them? They were probably lucky if they got to keep a job at all at CNN. So I think it's one of those things where it just fucking sucks. This is beyond disappointing. This is just like, it's a cancer within like our society where like, yeah, like corporate higher ups will just take a, like CEOs can like bag a fat check, and then like, the people who actually make the company run can go fuck themselves. So we have to like ask ourselves, like, what's our value? And like, is this worth it? And the answer is fucking no. Most of the time it's not. We have to like learn to like stand up for ourselves and like kind of speak out and be like, hey, this is fucking wrong. And I do feel bad that it's also impacting a medium I love. I love video games. If it hasn't been made clear anytime that you guys listen to me, I don't love the gaming industry, because the industry is focused purely on the profit. It's not based on the love of games. It's not based on the art form of it. It's not based on even about it having fun. It is about nickel and diming you as much as it can. So no, I don't fucking like the gaming industry. So yeah, I understand like your frustrations with that, Robert. Sadly, in this podcast, I don't think we'll be able to offer any sort of like solutions to that.
I don't think any of us have the solution, but it's something that I definitely just needed to voice.
Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah, I
All
get
right.
that.
Well, we appreciate you voicing your opinion, and we're always a good mouthpiece. Now, moving forward to other games that made us all sad this year. Randy, you with us?
I'm here.
All right. Always gotta check. Make sure. What was your most disappointing game of 2023?
I already had a rant about it, so I'll keep it short. Forza Motorsport. Let's see. So it's technically Forza Motorsport 8, but we're still using cars from fucking Forza Motorsport 3 in regards to like the base, in regards to the model, maybe with some up-res textures. Mind you, this game came out, or not came out, it was pitched in so much of its marketing, built from the ground up. Bitch, you're still using old car models. Stop saying built from the ground up. It ain't true.
They built it from the ground up, like what, over almost 2 decades ago?
Yeah. I, less than 2 decades ago, but still. Sorry.
Yeah, you're good.
They also absolutely butchered the upgrading system. They have updated it some to try and help with that. So originally it was like, okay, yeah, we want you to have like a bond between this car and like trying to have it so that way.
What are you gonna do?
Like,
fuck the car?
no, but in regards to like a sense of progression, it's because like for a long time it's been oh, you can, like, you would really get all of your upgrades really quickly. They would just like throw money at you and you didn't feel like you accomplished anything. It was more of like a instant gratification type of situation.
Yeah, I was
And
about
we've
to say,
bitched about that as a player. As players,
I
we've
was
been
about
like,
to say that kind of reeks sadly of a sense of pride and accomplishment there.
yeah. So I think they took that and then went a bit too far with it. Ended up because basically how it originally came out was, all right, they really dove into this car PG. Ooh, let's combine some fucking words there, and had it to where, all right, when you drive this car, depending on how well you are driving, taking like the optimal driving line, setting fast laps, things like that, passing people, you'd get car XP for that car. And then, you hit level, you level up, blah, 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 blah. That then unlocks upgrades. But you didn't get to choose what upgrades it unlocked. It was always the set same thing. So if you're driving, I'll just use a Mustang as example. Already really good power, like 400 horsepower from factory. That's pretty quick. But they're heavy as shit. I say heavy as shit. There's worse ones out there. But they're kind of heavy for a track car. So, you level up and you're like, man, I'd like to do the weight reduction upgrade. Well, you gotta wait till fucking level 25. Sorry, bro. So it really limits your freedom. So instead of being able to do what you want with the car, which it really narrows it to like, all right, at level 2, you're gonna upgrade exhaust components. At level 3, you get to unlock fucking tire width. At level 4, you get to change your tire compound. And it's just... It doesn't give you that freedom, and it's really frustrating. Which, like, yes, we wanted progression, but we wanted progression with freedom. So I guess maybe more of a restriction in regards to money. Maybe your pay... Like, it's more of balancing, I think, your economy. Or do almost what exactly you already did a decade ago in Forza Motorsport 4, and have it be with the manufacturer, have an affinity bonus. Let's say I love Nissans, I love driving them in the game and whatnot. You drive enough of them, you get to level, 10, 15, whatever bar they want to put it at. With driving this brand, now when you go to upgrade cars that are from that brand, the parts are cheaper. Hey, you did that in Forza Motorsport 4. Just do it again. Please. But anyway,
Well,
the main crux of the issue was just it took ages to upgrade.
Yeah.
Randy, I'm gonna throw this in. The idea of like a car RPG is fucking dumb because like if you want to because like Randy, if you need a part replaced on your car, you don't drive it more so you can replace it. You fucking pay to get it replaced.
Oh, well, you still pay for it. You just drive to unlock it.
That's dumb.
That's so stupid.
Yeah, it's dumb as fuck. It's dumb as fuck.
That's not how cars work. You don't
Dang, I need
level up your car by driving it more.
Dang, my headlights are out. I better drive in the dark more.
It's
not like that per se. I understand what you're saying.
I know, but it's like, dang, my brakes suck. I better try drifting.
Yeah, it's frustrating, to say the least. What really sucks is I hear the physics are actually pretty decent, that they were pretty like good upgrade in comparison to the last ones, and graphically it looks pretty good. Although they did the classic E3, or I guess not E3 anymore, RIP. But the classic, here's what the game looks like in our showcase trailer, and then you look at it on actual. Series X and whatnot, and it looks not the same. Yeah. Particularly environmental assets on the tracks and stuff like that is like a severe downgrade.
Yeah.
Even like it's on a Series X, but yeah.
Randy, I do have to ask, given just because we've brought up Game Awards a lot, how do you feel?
Oh, how pissed am I that it won Game of the Year? I'm fucking mad.
Well, it won
Game
base.
Yeah, whatever.
It technically won two awards. I don't know if you realize.
Accessibility is fine.
I mean, that one's fine.
They did actually do some cool stuff in regards to their accessibility options.
Yeah, that was just the real one that are best sportsing / racing.
Congrats on that.
Yeah.
And now, fuck off. You did not deserve Racing Game of the Year. Or sports / racing game. Literally, if anything else won, I would have been fine with it.
Dude, I want Hot Wheels.
Hell, give
to
it to
win
FIFA.
So bad. Actually,
FIFA should have won.
FIFA look, sorry if you play those games, but like FIFA has been playing this game. I want Hot Wheels to win. I would have loved. I would have lost my shit if Hot Wheels would have won.
I've actually heard that Hot Wheels, the Unleashed 1 and 2, are actually fucking really good.
I have the first Hot Wheels Unleashed. I have that one.
It looks good.
That was released a couple years ago. It's pretty fun.
I have it on Game Pass, so
Yeah.
like I could try it out anytime. Yeah.
It
Yeah,
looks
it's
good,
fun.
and it doesn't, and I bet it doesn't have, it doesn't take, what would you say, Randy, 2 hours to upgrade your car?
Ooh, I wish it was 2. It's 3.
Oh,
Although
no.
that's been that okay, so they did update it and literally cut it in half. Your all the upgrades become unlocked by level 25, so now it's an hour and a half, which I guess isn't that bad. But one of the things that's also really frustrating, I know like for some people this might sound insane to you guys, but for automotive enthusiasts and stuff, it's not. Especially with games like this, is you might want to have different builds of the same car. So maybe you have one Mustang that you love to go drifting in and whatnot. So you have, it's set up different. Then you have one that's for like grip driving, for stuff like that. So you would own 2 Mustangs. You have to level up each one individually, which is also frustrating as fuck. So there's 3
Yeah.
hours if you just want to have like 2 different setups on the same car.
That
Oh.
does sound like incessant padding, honestly.
Yeah. And also, major things weren't at the game at launch. And I say they still aren't in the game too. And we're recording 12:16 at this point. We started at 12:15. 2023, and still not in the game. So a drift mode, basically, that would like tally up your points if you're hitting certain zones, how much angle your car has, yada yada yada. Not in the game at launch. Still not in the game. Drag racing, still not in the game. The Nordschleife, still not in the game. I know to you guys that sounded like German, because it is German, but also it's known as the proving grounds, basically, for like automotive vehicles, basically. So, like I said, still not in the game, although they have announced that that's going to be coming in spring. Yeah, spring. Nordschleife is coming. Haven't heard anything about the other 2 things. Multiplayer still fucking crashes, so let's say, because they have like different types of compounds of tires and whatnot. You can have like hard compounds that last longer, or softs that give you more grip but will fade faster. The game just fucking right before a race, it doesn't care which one you chose, it throws you on soft compounds. So your entire like, oh yeah, we added these different compounds in so that way you can have a bit of strategy in your online races and stuff like that. No, it doesn't fucking work. Like, it's just a fucking laughing stock.
Jesus.
All right, that's my most disappointed game. I'll stop ranting.
Yeah, you're good. You're good. That's the point of this podcast, to rant. But since you're done ranting, we have one more rant. The final rant of 2023, some may say. And that belongs to the one, the only rant master, Seth. Seth, what is it you want to rant about for 2023? What disappointed you?
So sadly, this isn't really going to be a rant. It's going to be more like just kind of sad. It's more like drunken sad. The kids and the wife are gone. Nah, it's not that dramatic. My most disappointing game, and this one kind of hurts to say, is Hellboy: Web of Word.
Oh, yeah.
And that is my most disappointing game this year. And the thing about it is, it's not a bad game. It's just an okay game, and somehow that makes it worse. So Hellboy Web, if for people who don't know at this point, I am a massive Hellboy fan. And we don't really get a lot of representation of Hellboy in the gaming space. He's had like one notable game I can think of, the Science of Evil, came out in 2008, and that was just shit. Just typical awful like tie-in movie shit. And then probably the best version we've gotten was Hellboy for Injustice 2 as a guest character. That's fun, but like, So Hellboy Web of Word is developed. I'll look up the studio real quick. But basically, Hellboy Web of Word is as they build it, a action adventure roguelike brawler type game, which on paper does sound like an okay. I could vibe with that as like a Hellboy game. And when they showed the trailer for this last year at the Game Awards, I was like, I was very excited for it. The art design looks so spot on with the graphic novels. Mike Mignola's artwork is so iconic. The stark use of like colors and thick black lines and shadows. And one thing I always kind of love about it is he doesn't really allow colors to blend a lot of the time unless it's like the sky or something. Like, so everything is very just like in the best way possible. It really helps everything stand out on the page. It makes it very flat, but also makes it stick out. I love the visuals of like the Hellboy comics, and the game looked like a version of those comics in motion. And honestly, I can say that yeah, when the game came out, Web of Word, it was exactly that, where it had the art design, like it was perfect. But I think the problem I have with Hellboy Web of Word is first of all, it's the genre. So the developers behind this is Upstream Arcade. The last game they did was oh man, it was another roguelike game. What was the one with Ron Perlman was actually in it, and it looked a lot like Hellboy?
Oh gosh, it was like, it's not Ride to Hell. It's
No, it has definitely a different game.
no, it's oh gosh.
West of Dead. That's it.
That's
West
what it
of
was.
Dead.
It was like, yeah, it was like a cowboy thing. Yeah, West of Dead.
So it's pretty clear that if you look at their previous game, West of Dead, which had Ron Perlman as a undead gunslinger in this also like twin stick kind of roguelike game, it's very clear that this studio had a love for Hellboy, because you could tell, because they had Ron Perlman as the voice and because the art style was very reminiscent of Mike Mignola's art style, they were paying homage to the comic books. They were paying homage to that graphic novel series. And so whenever it was like, hey, they're making the Hellboy game, I was excited for it. I was a little less excited for it being a roguelike, but I was like, okay, let's see what they do with it. I really think the biggest issue with this game is the genre holds the game back. The gameplay of it is a bit clunky. It's obviously a small studio, so it's not completely polished up. But I do like the fact that a lot of the gameplay of Hellboy is in this game. It's not what I quite imagine Hellboy would play as, but I kind of like it. Is he plays like a boxer. He can block. He like dips and dives and moves in for punches and stuff like that. Like I really like that idea of making Hellboy just like, he feels like just a good like boxing kind of like character in this game. But like the roguelike elements, I feel like you need variety with your arsenal. And the thing is Hellboy, that whole game, you only get 3 guns, his revolver, a shotgun, and a grenade launcher. And you only get like 3 different artifacts he can take in. And then you get like maybe in total, I would say 12 different boons, something like that, which is not a lot. That basically means like, imagine Hades if it only had like 12 perks in all, the whole game. And I'm including weapon upgrades and such.
Yeah.
It's just, if the roguelike mode felt the roguelike elements felt very bare bones. Like it just doesn't really like, the whole time I was playing the game, I was kind of wondering like, why is this a roguelike? Because one, the game is actually pretty damn easy. It's not like you're dying a lot anyways. I've died like a couple of times, but it was like maybe like the first time like on a boss, and I'd get back to it and it would be no sweat. And it's just like, I don't know, like it felt confusing to play. And also because of the random generation stuff, you have like a lot of the same arenas being recycled and a lot of the same enemies over and over. And while you have this really beautiful comic book visual style with Hellboy, it's lacking in environmental variety. And as a result, it just feels like, yep, this is the floating, crumbling city, and this is the underground dark tunnel, and this is the wooded area, the dark wooded area again. And it's like, there's no variety. It's like, you have the cool art style of Hellboy, but you're not giving me an actual interesting environment to explore in. And I hate to say it, but it's like, why did Upstream Arcade decide this? Did they decide to go with this because this was the genre they were familiar with and they felt like we should just stick with what we know? Um, it
Yeah.
it really that really disappointed me. Um, I and it's like, and also the story as well. I'm sorry. Did you want to say something, Drew?
No, I was just gonna kind of agree with you and just kind of say like, it seems like that they did a roguelike because that was like their initial pitch or their design, like, oh, because we know roguelikes and we want to do something with Hellboy, so we're gonna do a Hellboy roguelike. But they didn't actually like build the game around being a roguelike. Like I think they had a decent single player like Hellboy game. Like there's a decent single player Hellboy game somewhere in here, but the lack in combat, but also like B, the fact that it is a roguelike holds it back so much because they can only generate so many areas and because they're trying to do all these other elements. Like just like we said with Hi-Fi Rush and some of these other games, it's okay to be simple. You don't need to be everything.
Yeah. And like I feel like, and I do agree with like the roguelike element is that it's it feels very bare bones even for a roguelike. It's like you want a lot of variety in builds and different kinds of enemies. A lot of the enemies end up feeling very samey, even if you're in like a new area with like, oh, these are the more werewolf types versus the like the creepy night dudes or whatever, but they all kind of have similar attack patterns. So it's like, you're still dodging the same way. They're still parrying the same way, even though it's technically a different enemy. Every now and then they throw in something new, like, oh, he spawns like a gas cloud, or this one's a little quicker and runs away sometimes, but not enough to really justify it. And so like the combat is nice and crunchy and punchy. I like the fact that basically Hellboy is all about basically going in for the big guys, boxing with them, dodging, parrying, building up like a stun gauge, and then just delivering like a huge punch to knock them into a wall or a crumbling pillar and causing like environmental damage. That stuff is really cool, especially since like whether Hellboy's doing a really cool like animation like grapple attack or doing a big punch, it does like the awesome like splash frame like right from like a graphic novel of just like bam and like the literally the word bam and it just like punching him and like the whole like background of the screen turns red. I love that. But it doesn't disguise the fact that the combat is just it feels very bare bones. Everything about this game feels bare bones, and that kind of disappoints me. I think one of the other elements, though, that really kind of hinders this game is its story is very meh. I've read a lot of Hellboy stories. I've read, I have like the volumes, the graphic novels, and I read through it, and I love Hellboy. He is my favorite comic book character of all time. And unlike a lot of other comic book series, Hellboy doesn't really have a multiverse. There's no alternate versions of Hellboy. There is one Hellboy. And the thing with Hellboy's comic book series is it has a definitive end. And I think that's where you start to get into the issue with this game is that it is a game that, because it's partially written by Mike Mignola, it is set in the Hellboy comics universe. And because Hellboy has the definitive story and end, it feels like it's like, well, we can't do anything too crazy with him because we're in the canon of this universe. And because of that, you just kind of get paired up with characters. You're not getting Liz Sherman. You're not getting like Abe Sapien in this game. You're not even getting Roger the Homunculus, which is one of my personal favorite characters from the comic books. You're just getting a whole new cast of all these human characters, and they're not terrible. They're just forgettable. Um,
It's wild to me in
and
that game. If I just want to interject, is like, even if you're not gonna use the original Hellboy cast, which again, that's a good cast. There's some cool people. Why
Yeah.
would you put it in this Hellboy world and just make everyone a human? Like, make one of them got like
Yeah.
a tail or something, bro. Like, give him a horn, give him something weird, make him a monster. Come on, just not humans.
and they do and they do try to do something with it where like a couple of them have supernatural powers. One of them, Lucky, has like the ability for foresight, but it doesn't really matter at all here, to be honest. And then the other one is this woman who is able to like speak to ghosts through her spirit box that she has, and that's it. And they're just not interesting. I hate to say it, but they're just kind of forgettable. Um, and because of that, this feels like just another job for Hellboy, which kind of works. Part of the appeal of the Hellboy comics is he's going through all this like creepy eldritch shit, like demons from hell and all this stuff that he's fighting off, but it's just another day for Hellboy. That's kind of the appeal of the comics, but here in this game, it just makes it boring, and it makes me kind of wonder, so why are we paying attention to this at all if this is just another day for Hellboy? Um I want to kind of get to like my main point really quickly here. I kind of wish if with Upstream Arcade, I think their biggest issue is they obviously love the comic books. They love Hellboy. And it's obvious that they want to pay as much respect as they can by having a story that doesn't interfere with the main story of Hellboy at all. That's and they try to go for like the mundane elements of Hellboy that makes that comic book stand out and that world stand out. But at the same time, what you get is kind of a boring video game. Um, Here's what I'll say: Upstream Arcade obviously has heart. They have the heart and love for Hellboy source material there, but just because you have the heart and love for something doesn't necessarily mean you can make a good game out of it. I have a lot of love and heart for Hellboy. Does that mean I can make a good game for him? No, I can't. I cannot. And it's like the difference. I'll make a good comparison here. It's how Insomniac approached Spider-Man. They made that character their own. Yes, they are drawing elements from movies, from comics, from shows to build out their version of Peter Parker, but then they own that version of Peter Parker. They own that version of Miles Morales, and they really like they try to take their favorite elements of those stories and figure out ways to tell it creatively. Versus with Hellboy, it's almost like they have to play it. Upstream Arcade had to play it too safe so that it couldn't interfere with the rest of the canon. I almost prefer if I was the talk if I could get a message at the Upstream Arcade, I would ask them really dig deep into yourself and ask yourself, does Hellboy first of all need to be a roguelike? Figure that out first. Does he seriously need to be a roguelike game? The other question I would ask is, does Hellboy does this need to be the comic Hellboy? You can't you just make your own version and just own it? Like do the Insomniac Spider-Man route. Like own that character. Do your own thing with this. Um and you can still keep like the art style. Just basically be like, hey, this is our own version of Hellboy. We're still using the art style of Mike Mignola, but this is not the comic book Hellboy. It's inspired by him, but it's not exactly him. Um, so yeah, it just makes me sad especially since Lance Reddick, he is like he was the actor for Hellboy in this game, and I will say that although it was a bit awkward at first, I did warm up to his vocal performance. I think he does a pretty decent job as Hellboy. It's just sad that they just don't really give him a lot to work with because the story is just very meh. Um, so yeah, like without dragging this out for too long, because I know I've just been going off on this, but and like I said, it's not a rant. It's just kind of sad. Hellboy Web of Word is my most disappointing game. I still enjoyed it for what it was, but it left me wanting more, and it made me think like I feel like the developers could have gone further with this. They could have like they really need to ask themselves like, are you just sticking with the roguelike mode because this is what you're comfortable with? Should you maybe consider trying something different? And also maybe consider trying to branch out the story and try to tell a more interesting Hellboy story than something that just feels like it's just another day for him. Because if it's just another day for him, why would I want to pay attention to it? So yeah, that's my most disappointing game.
Well, you have every right to be disappointed. But that's enough sadness. We've been sad, we've been disappointed. Some of us even got mad, like Randy. But now we can get happy again, guys. It's okay, guys. We can be happy because we are looking to the future of 2024. And this will be our most anticipated games for next year. And hopefully we will get to talk about those games next year whenever we do this again. So, I will go ahead and start. And for me, one of my favorite Xbox exclusives, and this game's been being teased forever now, was Hellblade. And I originally played Hellblade, and it was one of the most innovative. It's one of the most visually impressive, and especially audio and sound design, like audio design level, like impressive I've ever seen of just how much it's engraved into the game. The game really doesn't have a UI. Everything the game teaches you is about these whispers and these voices in your head, so you have to play the game with headphones. You cannot be playing it while you're in like a call with other people. There are sections in that game where that would literally be impossible. And there's a lot of cool like visual gags, or not gags, puzzles. And it's also just like an amazing personal story with this like Nordic Viking aesthetic to it, and Hellblade's phenomenal. And the sequel, the Senua's Saga, just Hellblade 2, finally is coming out this upcoming. I forgot what month, but it's coming out next year, and I'm very excited for it. I think Hellblade is Xbox's like kind of big. Xbox doesn't have as many like Last of Us style like AAA, look how pretty it is type game, except for Hellblade. And even though the original Hellblade, it's a very short game. It's not very long. Most people, you can probably beat it in a day, maybe two. But it is well worth your time if you can ever get it. I'm almost positive it's still on Game Pass because it's been on there forever, and it's just a really big thing for Xbox. So I'm super excited for the sequel, where they take this story and where kind of they keep making innovations with like the voices in Senua's head and how that affects gameplay. So super excited for that one. Robert, are you with us?
Yes.
All right,
I
cool.
am alive.
He is alive. Good, because you need to be alive not only for this year but for next year. Because next year you will be playing what game?
Be not just alive, but reborn with Final Fantasy VII Rebirth.
Ooh.
Coming in February with like every other fucking game on the planet. God, next year at the beginning of the year, it's fucking stacked.
Yeah.
We got Tekken 8, Persona 3 Reload, Final Fantasy 7 Rebirth, Ace Attorney, Apollo Justice, Dual Destiny, all that on Switch.
They're just like, what are all the games that Robert likes playing? All right, cram that into February.
Pretty much.
Throw it all to February.
Like a Dragon, Infinite Wealth, which I'm still on Yakuza 5, so I got a ways to go to get to fucking that one.
Yeah.
there's just a lot of fucking games coming out next year, and I'm excited for that.
Okay, but
But
but specifically, Rebirth is like that stands above them all.
yeah, honestly, I really love what they've been doing with like the Final Fantasy VII remake. Like I really liked remake, so I just love getting the opportunity to go back and go even more into the world and go into like the elements people don't talk about as much about FF7 because I feel like a lot of the discussion is around like Midgar because
Hmm.
that's just such like an intriguing part of the world. But there's a lot more to the world that I want to see in like I guess in like the remake. And then there's a lot of story elements too, like fucking Zach's here now, even though he wasn't really here due to story reasons in the original game. So seeing like how like Zach might interact with some of the cast or like of like Cloud and Sephiroth after all that
Hmm.
stuff happened in like Crisis Core and how things get changed for that, light spoilers.
Yeah.
But yeah, a lot of that stuff. I'm excited to see like some of the musical tracks that they're going to have for like some of the areas. Like, oh, I want to see what like Costa del Sol's like in Rebirth, or I want to see what the Gold Saucer is like.
Hmm.
Because the Gold Saucer is a really fun area in the original game. So getting like all these cool mini games and like the character interactions with that, with the remake cast, I'm really excited to see like play out.
Cool.
So yeah, that's. Oh, also the new gameplay additions too. Like they're adding like these like team combos
Oh
that you
yeah.
can do. Like Tifa and Red 13 can do like a tag attack or something like that. Like it'd be cool to see how some of those play out, and like how wacky those animations can get. So
Nah, definitely. That was
yeah,
probably one of like the biggest things, like one of the biggest asks from the like original Rebirth. I don't even know. The original RE7 remake was people were like, we want
yeah,
to do tag attacks, and they were like, all right, we'll do tag attacks or team attacks, I guess.
yeah.
All right. Well, we'll definitely keep an eye out for that. Randy,
Yes.
your turn.
So,
There is not going to
my
be a
most
Baldur's.
ant-
Yeah, there's not going to be a Baldur's
yeah,
Gate
it's
in
not Baldur's
2024.
Gate
Okay, just making sure.
unless they do an expansion, but I don't think they're generally known for that.
Okay.
Um, no. So my most anticipated game in 2024. I don't know if it'll necessarily come out, but it'll definitely come out in early access. Is gonna be Hades 2, for sure.
Yeah.
Oh, shit,
I
it's
am.
good.
Yeah, Hades 2. Oh god, I was expecting honestly at the Game Awards to hear them like announce like maybe another trailer and announce when early access was coming out. So I was a little surprised we didn't get anything.
Oh my god, it's
Um,
been a year since they announced Hades 2 too. Oh my god.
yeah, they announced Hades 2 at the last Game Awards before this most recent one. Um, but yeah, I'm super excited for Hades 2. I think the first Hades game, I don't know how many hours I have in it because it's across a couple different platforms. Because I've played it on PlayStation 4, it's where I originally played it. Then I played it on PC, and then
Well, you didn't originally play it on Xbox when it
I've
was
played
on.
it a little
Oh,
on.
because you don't have Game Pass. Never mind.
Yeah,
I'm sorry.
I was already on the game when it got
Yeah.
to Game Pass. Um, and then I think I've played a little bit of it on Switch, a little bit on Will's account, like if we're just
Oh,
kind
yeah.
of handed the controller back and forth on runs. So probably amongst all the accounts, I probably have 200 hours, maybe,
Seems about
maybe
right.
more. I don't know.
Yeah.
I got a lot because I probably have more than that just on Steam. Here, let me see here.
Yeah, but Hades,
Hades.
is
Oh God, I was way off. I have 430 hours on Steam.
just Steam.
Just Steam, I have
Yeah.
430 hours on
Let's
the
just
first
run it
Hades.
up to like 500. That's a nice round number.
Yeah, we can.
Yeah.
We can say 500.
I'll bring it back when they announce that they're having it come on like when they're announcing the second
access.
one's
Yeah.
early access. Yeah, yeah, yeah. But yeah, I like that they're giving us more Hades content because I know like I've been itching for it. Obviously with my 430 hours.
Yeah.
Um,
A game we
it's
didn't.
such an addictive game to
Yeah.
play, for sure. Um, and I remember I kind of will get hyper fixated on a thing, which is how I have 400 hours in Baldur's Gate almost. Or
Mhm.
wait, over 400. Nope, yep, almost 400. Um, in Baldur's Gate already. And so I remember I put it to myself to be like, yeah, I want to complete, you know, for a while I got really hooked on speed running. And so I wanted to get under 10 minutes or get to 10 minutes. It was something like that. I don't remember if I got under 10 in in-game time or not. I'd have to go look. And I also put it as a goal to like beat 40 heat. And I'm guarantee I'll have the same thing in Hades 2.
Yeah.
And so it's really addictive gameplay. And on top of that, um, a really good story, and I expect them to continue that um, into Hades 2.
Yeah.
And just with like heartfelt characters. The characters are really fun too. So, you know, I don't think Supergiant's gonna miss. They'll take their time and make sure it's good.
Mm.
And yeah, they've already said like Seth said earlier about s- games that do early access, right? Supergiant is one of the companies that does that. So
Well, with
I'm looking
Hades, that
forward
was
to
the
it.
one that they started with, but yeah.
Well, yeah, just as an example, and you know they're following a similar model for Hades too. So
I'm if Lies of P was the game that got me into like Souls, like Hades was the game that got me into roguelikes, and it has a fantastic story, it has amazing gameplay, and I am as equally as excited for Hades 2 as Randy. And I'm still sticking to my prediction. I've been predicting this since it was announced that one of the bosses that you will be again, instead of you fight Hades, one of the bosses will be you fight Zagreus as like
That'd
to
be
get
awesome.
into hell. So that's
Yeah.
that'd be interesting.
that's my prediction before we know anything about the game. But speaking of games that we don't know anything about because they're not even out yet, Seth, your big 2024 most anticipated game.
Yeah. So I do have like a couple. I got one that I'm worried about, uh, and one that like I feel like, oh yeah, this is gonna be a fucking hit if it does come out. It's kind of like similar situation with Hades 2, where we're not really sure an exact situation, or sorry, we're not sure of an exact date of when it might come out, but we'll see. So first game I'm really excited for, cautiously, is Dragon Age Dreadwolf. They recently came out with like a teaser trailer, which was basically, I think, their way of just saying like, "Hey, we're not showing you shit at the Game Awards." But Dragon Age is like obviously it's a game that like it's a game series that I love so much. It's another BioWare joint, and this was basically when they lost the rights to Baldur's Gate because of a clerical error. Yeah, that's what happened.
And here we are.
They yeah, when they lost the rights to Baldur's Gate, what they did instead was they were like, okay, we'll make a new series. So they started doing the Dragon Age series, which is I dearly love that series. It's kind of like one of my first like kind of like RPGs. Dragon Age Origins, Dragon Age 2, Dragon Age Inquisition, they're great games. The thing is, like, Inquisition came out in like 2014. It's been a hot minute since there's been a Dragon Age game. And Dreadwolf I'm worried about, admittedly. Because it's been in development hell for a long time. And also, admittedly, the BioWare that's making it today is not the BioWare of yesteryear. And also like just like other shit too that's happened. Like, yes, BioWare is also one of those companies that got hit with like massive layoffs as well. And it feels like ever since Andromeda and Anthem, they have been really struggling to get their foot back in the door. as like to kind of prove themselves as like one of the RPG greats developers. And I'm just honestly, I don't even need Dreadwolf to be a game of the year type fucking contender. I just want it to be a good game. That's really all I want because I really just want that team to be successful. And like from what we've been hearing about like the leaks, apparently Dreadwolf is going to be branching away from real time with pause combat. That's another RPG type term. They're going to be branching away from that with Dragon Age, which is typically what it's always been, is real time with pause, and they're going to be going into full on action. The comparison that apparently a lot of these leaks have claimed is, and I've actually seen one of these like leak videos. It's like interesting. Is that they're going to try to go for like a sort of God of War route with Dragon Age. I'm not sure how I feel about that, just because, much like what Final Fantasy did recently with FF16, going that action route. One of the appeals of the Dragon Age games is it's like Baldur's Gate. I'm serious. By the way, Randy, if you haven't played Dragon Age, you really should. If you like Baldur's Gate 3, because my God,
yeah.
I'm tired, Robert. Please let me get through this. But oh my God, now I'm lost.
Sorry about
that. Jesus. But anyways, like, so they're going down this like sort of like action route, and like similar like oh my God, similar like what Final Fantasy did, and kind of the appeal of Dragon Age is its party system. Like, you get to know your companions and you fight alongside with them. I feel like if it does go down the action route, and if they make it so you're only controlling your one character, it's gonna lose on that like party cohesion that you feel with your group. And without that, I think you're gonna lose something there. So I'm not entirely against the idea of it going like a full-on action style game. I just wonder, how are you going to marry the other elements that make Dragon Age if you do that? So, but that's just something that remains to be seen. Like I said, I'm cautiously excited for it. I felt like BioWare was starting to get a bit on an upswing after releasing Legendary Edition, but after these layoffs, I'm not so sure. So it just remains to be seen. The other game is Ultra Kill. I think I'm talking a lot about Ultra Kill. If you haven't heard me talk about it, just go listen to our indie game podcast. I love that game. The final act, it looks like we're on track for it to release sometime in 2024. Act 3, Godfist Suicide. Ultra Kill, with already what's come out with that game, is already like one of my favorite games of all time. If Act 3 comes out and officially makes it that the full release of this game is done, then it is already going to shoot to the top as one of my favorite games of all time. Easily. It's already going to be my game of the year if Act 3 comes out in 2024. So that's what I'm looking forward to.
All right. Well, sounds good. Well, that is all the game categories. Thank you all for your recommendation. It was wonderful. And we have one last thing. We're in the home stretch, guys, and then we can all go to bed. I promise. But this is the fun one. This is the one where we get to brag about ourselves and how much we've improved and how much fun it is to do this podcast. This is, in our opinion, what are our favorite podcasts that we have recorded this year. All these podcasts that we mentioned will probably be in the description, or just be on this YouTube channel or Spotify playlist, whatever you are listening or watching to. But with that said, Robert, you get to start us off. What has been your favorite podcast, either your favorite to record or go back and listen to, that we have done on the Fresh channel?
I think the most fun I had to record one was probably the Final Fantasy 16 one. We definitely rambled a lot on that one, but honestly, had some fun discussions and some good talks about it, because it's an interesting game, since it's trying to do something very like different from like with Final Fantasy standards, and it's also kind of your guys' more introduction to Final Fantasy, since that's
Mhm.
definitely been much more like my wheelhouse than for like you guys. So it was fun to kind of get to talk about something that I'm really into, like that you guys aren't really as familiar with, and just kind of seeing like your guys' thoughts on that.
Yeah, definitely. That was fun. It also did start this inside joke of Seth going on that huge rant of why he did see more nudity during the during the sex scene between Clive and Jill. I forgot her name for a minute. Uh, that one was a fun one because yeah, that was I had known what Final Fantasy is, and I still technically didn't even play 16. I just watched a playthrough of it. So we all came from incredibly different backgrounds. Of Robert has played almost every game in the series, or every game, if I'm not
Okay,
mistaken.
I've played like almost half.
That's still
There's a lot
impressive,
of
given
Final
that they're in
Fantasy.
16, and these are not short games. So that's still impressive. So like a decent
I
amount.
finished like I finished like 1, 4, 6, 7, 9, 10,
Yeah.
14 and 15 and 16.
So still like a lot of them. And then Seth, this is his first time playing a Final Fantasy, correct? That's correct.
Yeah, it
Okay,
is.
cool. That's correct. And then me, who still technically hasn't played one, so it was a very wide opinion. So let us go. But yeah, no, that podcast was a lot of fun to record. All right, Randy.
Yes. So I think the favorite one that I had to record was honestly our XCOM one. That was just you and
Ooh,
me. Um,
I forgot about.
I really enjoyed
Yeah,
talking about that because I mean, um, it was just fun to like the fact that we played it. And it was just I was showing you kind of a game that I wasn't sure if you would like it or not, and I'd recently kind of picked back up into it, and then you really dove into it, and that just I don't know got me excited about it again. And then I know obviously you had to go back home, so we ended up just kind of doing it on Twitch, and you kind of just being
yeah.
like, yeah,
Go
do
there,
that,
do that, go
yeah,
there. That was a fun podcast because that was one where it was like it was an in between week and we didn't know what to do and there wasn't a lot like coming out at that time of the year and we were just like, Randy,
we got this.
do you just want to talk about XCOM? Because we just finished it. I was like, I want to talk about this game. Like, it was a really fun
Oh
time
yeah,
playing that game. So yeah, that was fun. Also, fun fact: the shortest podcast we had recorded this year is only an hour and a minute long. Unlike this podcast.
unlike this one that
Yeah.
is
Yeah.
quite a ways past that.
Yeah, it's a two-part. It'll be fun. But that was a fun one.
Yeah.
I didn't even have that one. I'm glad you brought that one on because I had like a list of like some of my favorites. I didn't even have that one. That was a good one. Yeah. All right.
Definitely.
All right. Seth, it's your turn. Who's your? What do you think has been our best accomplishment in podcasting this year?
I don't know if I want to call it best
All right.
accomplishment, but
Well,
the one I had the most fun with was the Mass Effect podcast.
okay.
Obviously, it's just because it's one of my favorite game series, and I get to discuss it with you. One, because I get to talk about it with Randy, who has a very similar kind of like background and experience with Mass Effect, like myself, where it feels like it's almost a yearly ritual with us, where it's like, yeah, it's that time of the year where we do another Mass Effect playthrough, the whole trilogy. Um, and then also getting fresh eyes from you on this series and kind of like what's that like. It's so much fun. If there was one out of the three we did in particular I really enjoyed,
Technically
it would
four.
definitely be Mass Effect 3. Was it 4 parts? Because like
We
we
had
did Mass Effect 1
okay.
and then Mass Effect
Okay.
2.
I guess so. Here's the reason it's technically four because Mass Effect 1 was technically done last year, and then Mass Effect 2 was split up twice, and then Mass Effect 3 was split up twice. Because we did Mass Effect 2, and then we did a second
Oh
one
yeah.
about Mass Effect 2 about just the companions, and then Mass Effect 3 took two parts because we went on for a while. So
Yeah, I completely forgot that Mass Effect 3 got split up into 2 parts.
yeah,
I didn't realize we had even gotten that long. Uh, but yeah, like In particular though, it would probably be the Mass Effect 3 Part 1 and 2, just because like that one is definitely the most. I would say Mass Effect 3 is the most imperfect game of the trilogy, um, but it's also the one I love a
Mm-hmm.
lot. It some days, if you ask me, it might be my favorite one. Where I think what's so great about Mass Effect 3 is like, yes, from a quality standpoint, that game is like, if you had to give it a number, it's like a 7 or an 8 out of 10 game because of like some of its issues. And also like some of the weird plot hole shit that gets pulled there that you literally don't see in any of the other Mass Effect titles. Yet
Mm-hmm.
it's also one that holds a very special place for me personally, just because of like how it resolves things with like the story of your companions and the story of your shepherd. And like I said, the big part of this was was seeing you undergo that journey as well, and you gotten to tell us about what you think of your first experience with this game is, because like Mass Effect, like I said, I'll say this to my grave. Mass Effect is not a perfect game series, but it's my favorite game series. Um, because like I feel like to really love something and to like enjoy the shit out of it, it doesn't have to be perfect, you know? Like it doesn't have to always have the best graphics or the most well-tuned gameplay. Like I think if you get the heart of it right, the game shines through. And I feel like our podcast illustrated that. It
Yeah.
reminded me so much of our AC3 podcast when we talked about like all the like back and forth of like, this is what that game did good, this is what also that game did weird or shittily, and it's fun. I did like the sort of like bipolar experience we had of that fucking
Yeah.
game.
What a
So
game.
What a game,
it what a
AC3.
game.
Yeah. I will say with Mass Effect, the part 3, or specifically talking about Mass Effect 3, I really do enjoy that podcast. And I do want to shout out our podcast on Mass Effect 2. Not even the one where we review it, more the one where, because it got split up, but it worked out well because I really did enjoy when we basically reviewed every single character from Mass Effect 2. Because it really, I think it helps that we did that before I went to Mass Effect 3 because it really helped me like understand your guys' perspective of these characters and really like made me appreciate them like way more when I like moved forward to Mass Effect 3.
Yeah,
And that's always fun.
that's good,
Yeah.
because like that's, yeah, that's a big part. It's like kind of like how people interpret those relationships with the characters. That's cool. Not
Uh,
Ashley and Caden though. They're not
nah.
cool. They're dead.
What the At least one of those. Well, I
But
guess no. You
Who?
def. Yeah. Who? There you go. There you go, Randy. No, great games. So, as for me, your host of these podcasts, all of them hold a near and dear place in my heart because all of them are experiences I get to talk to you guys, and you guys are my friends, so I enjoy all of them. But the ones that stick out to me, I'm gonna name off a bunch. I'll be quick, I promise. But I want to say first and foremost, I'm super proud of both Seth and Robert for the Indie Games podcast, the first ever fresh podcast that does not include me. And you guys did that because I was out at a concert and also like sick the next couple days, and I don't know much about indie games. But you guys killed it, and it's amazing, and it did great. On top of that, at least the ones that like I really enjoyed doing, at least recording wise, Randy, I love the sleep token one where it was you, me, and Will. I always love it when Will
God.
can. I love it when Will can join. He's a great person to have on the podcast. We need to have him on more. And there are also just so many. It's always fun talking about music and deep diving into it, but also the fact that there are so many just dumb jokes in that one. Like Robert, Seth, I know you
I'm
guys.
aware.
I know you guys aren't the biggest into music, or at least like this kind of music. Listen to this podcast; it's hilarious. Or like, I need to just find the time codes for some of those moments and share them with you. That was at least like the funniest to record, but at least in terms of like ones I think we did like the best on, arguably it probably should be the one that me and Seth recently recorded, which was Lies of P, which recently got over 1K views, which is really good for one of the podcast.
Yeah.
But I will kind of give my favorite, probably also because I put the Lord's most work into it, because I had to fill a 2-hour podcast completely and only with 30-second clips. But that was the Smite one.
Oh, that Smite one? Yeah.
That Smite one. Dude, that took so long. I don't know if you remember how long that took
I
me.
appreciate it.
Yeah, but it worked out so well, because this had been a game that me and Randy have been playing for years. And also you guys have been
Some
playing
say too many.
Nah, never. But it was such a fun thing to finally like sit down and talk about like why we love this game, and it was such a fun thing of like, not only was it my clips, not only was it Randy's. Robert sent like 1 or 2 clips. Seth sent me a couple of clips, and it's just like, man, this is just like, it really is like the fact that this is all from like a free to play game. We have so many just like fun moments from this podcast, and like all these like different gods and goddesses have been playing it for so long. It's like, I'm glad that I put all that work into that podcast, and it was, even if that one like it did pretty well, but like that one will like kind of forever be one of my favorites, because now I also have an excuse of I don't have to save a million Smite clips on my Xbox anymore, because I can be like, well, I have this thing that's up online forever that I can go and look at. And the first couple of minutes of it is all of our like pentakills and a few quads in there. So it's like the best clips at the start. And that's why I love it. But again, doing these podcasts with you guys is always fun. Even if it's super late and I can tell you all are tired. But I'll go ahead and wrap it up there.
It's my bedtime.
It is Randy's
It's my
bedtime.
bedtime like an hour ago.
It is. But so I want to thank all three of you.
I've been up since 2 a.m. So I am officially been up for 24 hours.
I'm wrapping now. I'm doing the close now. I promise, guys. I promise. But I want to thank our resident dork with a Star Wars tattoo, Randy, for not only this podcast, but the podcast in the past years. And I also want to thank our resident anime game / Zelda nerd, Robert. It's been great. And also shout outs to Becca, who did the anime podcast with us, the Cowboy Bebop one.
Yeah, that was a fun one to do too.
That was a good one. Thank you for your support this past year and this podcast right here. And then also have to thank Mr. I can make a video essay about anything, Seth. It is always good to hear your thoughts. You're always so insightful, and we couldn't do this podcast without you, mate.
Thank you.
And also thanks for all the shorts ideas. You're doing great on those. And as always, thank you all for watching or listening. We appreciate you the most. Stay safe out there. Goodbye.